So one of the physical properties that we're going to talk about, and remember physical is something we can observe without changing the matter, is density. Density just means how much space something takes up. When we first started talking about matter, we know it has to have a mass, it has to have matter in it, but it also has to take up a little bit of space. For example, this bag right here isn't taking up a lot of space, but we can add volume to it because now it's taking up a little more space. That's our first word for today. Volume is the amount of space matter occupies or takes up. There are two ways to measure volume. The first is for a regular object, which just means something that's square or can be measured with a ruler. Regular object, and then you're going to draw a square next to it. So to find the volume of a square object, well, let's take a look. This has 3 dimensions. It has a height, it also has a width, and it also has a length. So it's the length times the width times the height. This is in 3D, so we have 3 dimensions: length, width, and height. And that's going to be measured in cubic centimeters because we see that this is a cube, 3 dimensions. Let's write that down. To find a regular object, you multiply the length times the width times the height. And that's going to be in meters cubed, cubic meters, or cubic centimeters. For example, I would take a ruler to this box, and I would see that its length is about 20 centimeters. Its width, that's how wide it is 5 centimeters. And its height is about 28 centimeters. I'm going to take those 3 dimensions and multiply them by each other. And in multiplication, it doesn't matter what order you use. Length, width, and height, multiply them together. So I took 20 times 5, which was my width, times 28. My answer is 2,800 centimeters cubed. That cubed is because we took a centimeter times a centimeter times a centimeter. So we have 3 centimeters that we're multiplying by each other. But what if I wanted to find the volume of this pencil? I could measure the length, but it's also a circle, so it'd be hard to measure all the dimensions. That's why we have a different way to measure irregular shapes. An irregular object is just something that doesn't have nice corners. So go ahead and write your next bullet point, a regular object, and just draw a little blob. For an irregular object, we need to use a graduated cylinder that's filled with water. And we're going to measure how much the water goes up when we add the object to it. We call that the displacement. So for an irregular object, measure the displacement or the difference of water. You're going to do this in milliliters. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you had an object, this purple ball, that you wanted to measure. Right now, if I look at the meniscus, that's the bottom, I see that it's about 10 milliliters. And when I drop the ball in, I see it rises, the water level rises to about 18. So let's think about that. It starts at 10, the water's at 10. When we add the water and the ball, it goes to 18. So that means the ball started at 10. When we added the ball, it got to 18. That means the ball must have been 8 milliliters for its volume. It took up 8 milliliters of space. So we're going to write that in our notebooks. Started at 10. When we added the ball, the water grew by 8. So we know that the ball must have been 8 milliliters of volume. Let's show a real-world example, and that'll be it for your notes. Right now, this water level is at 20. Remember, you always measure the meniscus, or the bottom curve, of your water. If I add this pencil, and this dude, Archimedes, actually figured out in the bathtub, when you add something to water, it actually goes up. It's going to go up the same amount of space that it takes up. So, if it starts at 20, I add the pencil, it goes up to 22. Starts at 20, goes up to 22. The pencil must have been 2 milliliters. We're going to practice that today, but that's the concept, is that when you add things to water, it's going to displace or go up its volume. Remember, volume is the amount of space something takes up. For regular objects, you can just measure the length, width, and height and multiply them. For irregular objects, things that you can't really measure the length or the width or the height if it's round or blobby, you're going to dump it in some water and measure the displacement.